Good day, everyone. I'm Reginald Lampkin, VP Manager with the Illinois Department of Innovation and Technology. And today we're walking through exactly how to complete a BEP utilization plan version 26.1, step by step. This walkthrough is designed to ensure your submission is complete, correct, and fully responsive. The most important thing to understand is this. A utilization plan is required for responsiveness. If it is missing or incomplete, the bid may be determined non-responsive. By the end of our session, you will be able to complete each required section, understand what reviewers look for, and avoid the most common causes of non-responsive bids. Part 1. Terms and conditions. At first glance, Part 1 may look like something you can skip. But in reality, this is your instruction manual. What Part 1 does? Part 1 explains the rules governing BEP participation, how your utilization plan is evaluated, what makes your bid responsive or non-responsive, and definitions that apply throughout the plan. Now, key definitions that we're going to highlight. One is certified vendor. A firm must be BEP certified at the time of bid submission to qualify for gold credit. Commercially useful function, or CUF. A BEP certified firm must perform real, direct work, not act as a pass-through. If they do not, their participation does not count. And finally, solicitation scope identifier. The relevant solicitation commodity codes and/or scope descriptions. These commodity codes define the work on the solicitation. Every subcontractor in Part 3 must align with these codes. Critical content from Part 1. Finding BEP certified vendors. Vendors must use the certified firms directory in CEI's Supplier Diversity Management Portal to locate eligible firms. Curable versus non-curable deficiencies. Under 30 ILCS 575 4E, curable deficiencies include Scrivener errors, such as transposed numbers, information submitted in the wrong format, failure to follow instructions, lapsed certification status, and not fully meeting outlined goals when plan was submitted. Non-curable deficiencies include a blank utilization plan, a plan showing lack of reasonable effort, and a non-certified vendor claiming self-performance without good faith efforts or waivers. Eligible expenditures. Only direct participation in the contract scope of work counts towards the goal. Contract monitoring requirements. Once the contract is awarded, the U plan becomes part of the contract. Monthly reporting and subcontractor validation in the Supplier Diversity Portal is mandatory. All payment entries must be reconciled before the monthly audit closes. The prime must maintain records for 3 years. Non-compliance can be deemed a material breach, subject to sanctions or disqualification up to 1 year. Substitutions. Vendors cannot unilaterally reduce BEP goals. Substitutions require justification plus submission of a new Part 3 and revised U plan within 10 business days. Now that we understand the rules, let's move to the heart of your commitment. Part 2. Part 2, Prime Vendor Commitment. This section declares how you intend to meet the BEP goal. Everything downstream, parts 3 or 4, must align with what you declare here. Section 1, Solicitation Information. You must enter the purchasing entity name, the solicitation bulletin number, the solicitation title, the assigned BEP goal, make sure you enter that as a decimal, and a bidder or offerer name, and solicitation scope identifier. All data must match the solicitation exactly. Errors delay review. Here are the core requirements. Firms must be BEP certified at bid submission. All participation must meet CUF standards. And dually certified firms, BEP plus Veterans Business Program, can only count towards one goal. Selection options. There are 3 separate options. Option 1, self-performance by a BEP firm. If selected, only Part 2 is required for submission. And that's indicated here in purple. Option 2, subcontracting, indicated here in blue. You either are a BEP certified vendor and splitting responsibility with another BEP firm or firms, or you are not a BEP certified firm and using BEP subs to meet the entire goal. In this instance, in this example, they're not a BEP vendor and they're using BEP vendors to complete the goal. If you check one of these 2 boxes, submit Part 2 and Part 3 for each BEP certified subcontractor. And finally, option 3, waiver request. If unable to meet the goal, you must complete Part 4 and provide good faith effort documentation. If requesting partial reduction, you must also submit Part 3 for the portion you can meet. And finally, in section 2, compliance attestation. Signing Part 2 binds the prime vendor to all BEP rules. Failure to comply is a material breach of contract with possible termination or sanctions. Now, Part 2 states your promise. As we move on to Part 3, it provides your proof. Part 3, BEP Subcontractor Participation Agreement. Now, this is the most detailed and reviewed part of the plan. Now, what must be included? We have solicitation information, bidder's business information, the subcontractor's information, estimated percentage or dollar amount, which is indicated here, start and end dates. Moving on to the next page, detailed scope of work with matching scope identifiers, tough statement, and signatures from both parties. Goods and services description. Your description must include the exact work performed, the deliverables, the tasks, the responsibilities, materials, and scope identifiers, which is all indicated here in this section. Important, if a subcontractor performs work under multiple scope identifiers, the vendor must provide a separate, fully detailed description for each scope identifier, including the task, deliverables, responsibilities, materials, and scope specific details. This requirement is explicitly stated in the BP utilization plan form. If unclear or too general, BEP may not count the participation. So here, if the vendor is doing work under 2 or more scope identifiers, you would click on add scope identifier and you would add the scope identifier there and complete it the same way you did the first one. Now, if you have another subcontractor, you would click this button here and you would complete the next section for that new subcontractor. And for this example, we have done such. And you see at the top here, it's labeled BEP Subcontractor Participation Agreement number 2. And you add the same information as well as the percentage. The first one was at 4%. This one's at 3%. And the start and end dates, the scope identifier, and plus the scope of work, what the subcontractor is responsible for. Important rules. The bidder or offerer cannot prohibit or limit any selected BEP certified subcontractor from providing subcontractor quotes to other potential bidders or offerers. No subcontractor change without written approval. Approved Part 3 becomes part of the contract. Now we'll move on to Part 4. Now, if you can't meet the goal, we go to Part 4. Waiver request review process. This is where vendors request a waiver if they cannot meet all or part of the goal. Critical rules. Failure to submit a utilization plan with all good faith effort documentation results in a non-responsive bid. All certified vendors located on the scope identifier list must be contacted to demonstrate due diligence to obtain BEP subcontract participation. Updated authority. As of 2024, effective July 1st, 2024, BEP compliance now makes all final waiver determinations across all purchasing entities, including Capital Development Board and universities. Now, the waiver process: review the instructions, complete the separate BEP waiver request and review form, and submit. Signed Part 2, the request and review form, and if requesting reduction, Part 3 or Part 3s if you have multiple subcontractors. Purchasing entity conducts initial review, and then BEP compliance issues the final determination within 10 business days. Now, the waiver checklist: to obtain a CEI approved waiver, the bidder or offerer must complete all 10 requirements of the BEP Act in detail, demonstrating their actions and efforts for each of the 10 requirements. You have, and these are all checked. You checked all of these. Certified vendors contacted, the scope portions that were made available, no improper rejection or certified vendors. You have to indicate that. Outreach with sufficient time and accurate information. Follow-up communications. Negotiation efforts. Justification of cost differences. Current and prior use of BEP vendors. Breaking out work where feasible, and use of state and community assistance resources. All items required for waiver evaluation appear in the official checklist. A waiver is not an explanation, it is evidence of effort. Now, to summarize the entire utilization plan: Part 1 are the rules and definitions. Part 2 is your commitment. Part 3 is your detailed plan and proof. Part 4 is your documented good faith effort if you cannot meet the entire goal. Final reminder: if your U plan does not clearly connect the solicitation, the subcontractor, and the work, it will not pass review. I'm Reginald Lampkin, and on behalf of the Illinois Department of Innovation and Technology's Office of Supplier Diversity, thank you for your time and commitment to equitable contracting practices.